It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 286. Tonight I'm joined by Emo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hi.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
And Tam.
Hello.
I'm helping.
So mistakes were made.
Oh
and
my
we're
god.
on a different server tonight than we've been. So if anything ends up sounding different, like there's reasons, but it'll be fine.
I'm voting for Chipmunk Bell.
Oh, please God, no, not Chipmunk Bell.
I was just
But that
thinking
was
the
hilarious.
same thing, actually.
Oh God,
God.
no, please no, please no, please no. Yeah, so hopefully everything goes perfectly cromulent.
When you have a number of technical professionals and you need to set up something technical like, I don't know, a voice chat server, it's probably best to have the technical people do that and not me, mostly.
Because your ambition outstripped your technical knowledge?
Because I have exactly enough technical skill to create a bunch of problems. I'm frankly amazed that the old server or the previous server worked as well as it did for as long as it did.
Yeah, like it pretty much just worked flawlessly for 6 months, and then tonight it suddenly didn't. So, yeah, that's the thing.
And definitely the things that I did to try to fix it, it was like we had a probably fairly small problem, and I'm guessing that what I have done was turn that small problem into a number of significantly larger problems.
There's a fire. Quick, let me pour this liquid on the fire. Oh God, it's gasoline.
I think you turned the problem into I guess maybe we should start over from scratch problem.
Yes.
We may or may not be trying to sucker one of our friends into just like doing a real hosting job on this. So we'll see. So I have a technical story of weird things happening. In Destiny, I know I mentioned this on the podcast one time when having a conversation with Thalen, but some time ago they put in a patch where every time I booted up the game, it tried to auto-detect my settings and was damned determined to have me run in HDR mode and 4K and full screen. And no amount of changing this in the settings would ever override this. And it would always auto-detect back to 4K and HDR, which is fine other than the fact that like I personally don't like HDR that much. So deep buried in the bowels of the Bungie forums, someone figured out the answer. And that answer is take the configuration file, set it to read only. Copy another copy of it, let Windows rename it to configuration file copy, set it to read only. Copy it again, and let it rename it to copy 2, and set it to read only. Because apparently at that point, after trying twice, it just gives up.
Oh.
And by locking 2 files, actually locking 3 total files, it'll just accept whatever you want it to do.
I was going to ask if all this layers of copies were necessary, but it sounds like they might be.
It absolutely is necessary, because it tries 3 times in a row, and if it can't write to the next file, it just eventually gives up and lets you do what you want to do. Thanks, Bungie. Thanks so much. So yeah, I mean, that's apparently a thing, and I won't lie, at various points in my career, I've kludged together something equally bad, but yeah, that's a thing.
The person responsible for that is not feeling proud right now.
No. Like, first of all, I want to know why all of a sudden it forces auto redetection no matter what, because that's bad, and hopefully that eventually gets patched. But for now, I have quote-unquote fixed it.
Well, that's good.
So we have a topic that has rolled over so many weeks because Grace has been busy.
I've been moving and changing jobs and I don't know what. Life is exciting right now. I'm amazed that I'm here this week.
I am too. But round about Christmas time, you started playing a game called Book of Demons.
I did. And it was surprisingly delightful. it was one of those games that Steam shoved in my face and said, hey, you might like this and it's on sale. And I had not ever heard of it. And it actually looked kind of adorable. And is in fact genuinely entertaining. It is essentially a little Paper Diablo. And you take your little paper self, murdering little paper demons, using cards instead of spells and items. And it is, I mean, pretty much everything I like out of a game.
This game feels designed for mobile.
It does. That is definitely true. Especially the way that the movement is very on rails. It's very... That part took a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah.
But then once I got used to it, I was okay with it.
I mean, that, and also the fact that it is even like intentionally divided into fairly short play sessions.
Yes.
This is very useful, quite frankly.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really love is that you can divide it into very tiny play sessions, but you get to choose. Like once you've basically unlocked most of the controls, you can decide how long you want to play. And based on your playstyle, it estimates about how long the levels will take. And you have a nice little slider that lets you grow or shrink the randomized dungeons until it matches about the time you want to play. And I want every game to have this. Yeah, that is such a perfect amount of utility that I honestly want every game I play to be able to tell me this is how long you need to play to accomplish a meaningful chunk of activity in the game. And having it give me a slider so that, I have 30 minutes right now. I'll do 30 minutes worth of stuff. Or, I have an hour. I'll do an hour's worth of stuff. I'll murder an hour's worth of demons. And it will tell me exactly how many floors and how many monsters and approximately how much loot I will get.
There's a lot of the game that kind of reminded me of Darkest Dungeon. I mean, and it's not an exact equivalency, but just kind of the setup of like going in these dungeons that are all like linked together reminded me of, going on those missions where, you've got multiple floors linked together. And thankfully, it's nowhere near as tough as Darkest Dungeon. And it's way more chill.
It's a pretty chill game, which is why I played so much of it for so long, because I needed a very chill game where I murder demons. And this was a nice change from actual Diablo without being that significantly different from Diablo, but with a cute different art style, and also a story that basically makes fun of itself for being exactly as much Diablo as it can be without being sued.
I really kind of do wish it was a mobile game. Like, I would probably find myself playing it way more often if I could, throw in a small dungeon run while I'm, waiting on something to finish or...
Yeah, I would definitely play that game in mobile form. It might distract me from my intense Dragalia Lost playing, but
So,
I would...
Go ahead.
No, I would definitely enjoy it on that medium.
Does it feel more like... So first off, this is on which device? PC or Switch?
PC.
PC? Is it click to move?
It's
Click to do a lot of things.
Yeah, it kind of feels like almost like a turn-based game, even though it's actually live action. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, but to some extent, it reminds me of the way the original Neverwinter on AOL felt.
That's going a little too far back for me.
I know, that's a deep slice right there, but Neverwinter was originally a gold box game, but online.
It is not click to move in the same way games like Diablo are click to move. You click ahead of you and you move forward. You click behind you and you move backwards. Your movement is mostly on rails.
Okay, it's not 3-dimensional maps then?
Like two-dimensional maps. Like sometimes there are turns.
Okay.
But it's like, I mean, it's like playing Paper Mario but Diablo.
Okay.
That's the only explanation that makes sense.
But like I'm pressing buttons and clicking enemies to attack?
Yes.
Yes.
You have an auto attack, but if you click on enemy, you attack a little faster.
And I mean, like, there's certain parts of it that kind of remind me of Hammer Watch as well.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of that feel. I think the other thing that threw me about it initially was that you are on rails, but the monsters are not necessarily.
Yeah.
So
The first time I encountered a gargoyle, it messed with my head.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to wrap your head around the fact that you can only walk on this path, but monsters will come at you from wherever they feel like it.
And you can attack off of the path.
Yes.
Neat.
And the loot system is fairly basic and self-explanatory, but I like the fact that spells and items and weapons are all cards, and you just have a set number of cards, and you can decide if you want that to be all spells or a mix of spells and weapons or whatever you decide.
Yeah, the build system kind of reminds me of Guild Wars 1, minus the leveling up of abilities, I think.
Guild Wars 1 didn't really have... Well, I guess it's sort of... Guild Wars 1, you leveled your attributes and they determined what your abilities... That was weird. Guild Wars 1 is a weird game. One of the things about weapons and equipment here is that they reserve your mana.
Mm.
So if you want to take a whole bunch of different spells, you might not want to take a bunch of equipment, or you might want to level up your mana more. One of the two.
The fact that you can choose to level up your mana more is nice. And the other thing that I liked is that when you level up, you basically get to choose if you want to add a point of health or mana. And the other point goes in a cauldron, and you can go back to town at whatever intervals and basically collect the things that are in the cauldron. And the pool in the cauldron grows the more stuff you do without dying. But those points that you earn from leveling will never disappear. So the extra bonus stuff you get is better if you wait a long time before you empty the cauldron. But you will never lose the power, right? Either the health or mana that you earn from leveling. So that was relief.
Yeah, and I like that, like, going back to town doesn't necessarily empty your cauldron, that it's like a conscious act that you need to do.
Yes. And you have to pay for. So again, it's in your best interest to put it off as long as possible.
Pay escalating costs for, if I remember correctly.
Yes. But yeah, it's a cute game. It's definitely fun if you like Diablo-like thing. And I found it very entertaining, and I want to broadcast that scalable time sync to every other game I play forever.
Okay, this next game, I have been seeing weird messages all afternoon about. What the golf?
So, so Grace mentioned mobile games, and I had a friend recommend this to me as a chaser after another game, and it's on Apple Arcade and probably somewhere else. I think it's coming to Switch as well, but it's.
I'm now watching the trailer of this game, and I'm very, very confused.
It builds itself as a golf game for about the first 2 levels. And then
this trailer is not even pretending that it is a golf game.
And then you realize that it's not. It's a weird like 3D physics puzzle game, but it's using broadly using the concept of golf as a conceit throughout the whole thing. But it's both a bunch of really clever little puzzles that are like nice and bite-sized, and you can kind of work your way through them. With and then they all have themes. So like the first few puzzles were like actually golf themed. And then the next few puzzles were like soccer themed, where instead of getting a golf ball to a hole or something in that vein, you were trying to get soccer balls into goals. And then it went back to golf, where it was like, get the hole to the ball, get the flag to somewhere else. Maybe the flag is going to run away from you. You've got to catch it. It's also homages to a ton of games. Like, there's some Portal levels. There's some Super Meat Boy levels. I was just playing through some levels that were a first-person shooter. Like, it's a first-person game, but it's first-person, but you're in the perspective of the ball. There's a bunch of weird physics going on, but it's legitimately super delightful, and all of the weird stuff it's doing keeps the gameplay really fresh. So it's become I've actually played a whole bunch of it this week, like in the last couple of days, just because it's like really charming and the puzzles are fun. It is a game that works. Like, one of the things that I've been really excited about is, like, in the last year or two, we've started to get made for mobile games that are actually, like, legitimately super fun, and I like playing them as much as I like playing, a console game or a PC game. And this is definitely on that list. It did convince me that I would not like Super Hot, though.
Oh?
How did it convince you of this?
Because there's a whole section of levels that are Super Hot themed. Like, I haven't played Super Hot, but it looks like every trailer of Super Hot I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, I joked about earlier that Super Hot is just a roguelike because things only move when you do.
Yeah.
So,
But
when you're in a physics-based game.
well, I mean, so Super Hot is also that thing, kind of.
Yeah.
Super Hot is
Well,
also lying to you, but whatever.
It's fair. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's real silly. There are a lot of times where it'll like load up a level, but you won't know. It doesn't show you what the thing, like, it uses the, Angry Birds style controls for most of it, where you're sort of like slingshotting.
I mean, that's how a lot of golf games work.
Yeah, it works. It works great for this, but it doesn't show you the indicator, so you don't always know what item is which of the many things on the screen is the actual thing that you're moving until you like pull back and you're like, oh, it's that, huh?
So honestly, this game sounds and looks a lot like Frog Fractions.
Yes, yes.
I mean, is this Frog Fractions 3 in disguise?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but it has that kind of like, it has that same feel to it.
Surprise, now you're playing something else.
Yes.
Well, you remember, like, there was Desert Golf or whatever, which was a game that people were claiming was Frog Fractions 2?
It was not. I did play a lot of Desert Golf.
I also played a lot of Desert Golf because I was curious, and it never turned into anything.
It was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, like, this has been super fun. I've played quite a bit of it, actually.
The most fun you've had with a golf game since Party Golf.
I mean, I kind of want to play Golf Quest. I've heard it's amazing, and it's also not at all a golf game.
Golf Story?
Yeah, Golf Story. Yeah, there you go.
And Golf Story is getting a sequel, which I think is just Sports Story.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a Video Game Award exclusive trailer.
It's also got secrets and a world map for you to navigate.
Yeah, I should try this out. This definitely sounds like Frog Fractions.
It absolutely, it reminds me of that. Yeah, like, until you said it, I hadn't made that connection, but now that you have, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a game where the further in you get, the more different games you're playing, but all kind of linked, but not, maybe.
So speaking of which, did you see that Frog Fractions is getting console releases?
Yes. I was asked to wishlist it by Jim Crawford, so I did. I'm excited for this.
I just did not think we had talked about that yet. But
we
yeah.
had not, and that's really exciting. And if you haven't played Frog Fractions or Frog Fractions 2, you should.
It's a game about frogs and fractions, and it is this thing for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. You should play it to find out more, although the description may give away some of the plot.
Frogs need fraction, Joe. So next up, Kentucky Route Zero, and like, why is this surfacing again all of a sudden?
It just finished this week.
Yeah.
Okay, so the final chapter happened?
The final chapter of Kentucky Route Zero happened this week.
How many years did that go on?
6.5.
Wow.
Yeah, I played that this week. I played it all the way through this week because I hadn't, like, the last time I played it was before I had not just my current computer, but probably the one before that.
I say the last time I played it was 2014.
Yeah, I played it right when it came out, and that was the last time I played it. I think I might have touched it in the middle. Anyway, I didn't have a save, so I loaded it up. And I feel like the game does not deliver on what it's doing without playing through the whole thing. the end result was like, what if Night in the Woods were darker and bleaker?
I mean, that game is already dark and bleak, IMO.
Yeah. It is an incredibly weird game. Like, there's just a bunch of, like, whimsically weird stuff going on. And that whimsically weird stuff is mostly to paper over how incredibly dark it is. It's got these hints of it. It's like broadly, it's sort of like a commentary on middle America. You're a truck driver for a shop that's closing down, and the major themes in the game are the people capitalism leaves behind and debt.
I'm legitimately curious how long it takes that game to sort of congeal to those themes. I believe I only played Chapter 1.
So, Chapter 1 feels like nonsense.
Uh-huh.
Chapter 2 starts to coalesce a bit. Chapter 2 starts to coalesce a bit into something where you're like, oh, this seems like it's not just nonsense, it's going somewhere and saying something.
Okay.
And chapter, and like, it's still weird, but it's like the weirdness is starting to take a shape. And by chapter 3, so it's multiple chapters, and the chapters are following one group of people, and the interludes are following a different group of people, and they broadly intersect until finally you understand what's going on with both groups of people, more or less. But there's a point, the interlude just before chapter 3 is a play. You watch a play, and like, wow, that play is dark. And that's sort of the point where everything, for me, that was the point where everything coalesced. It was like, I just finished chapter 2. I understood the interlude. Like, I saw what the interlude was doing, and then I'm in the space that the interlude is talking about, and I'm like, oh, got it. Yikes. It's got some really, really incredible, just like sound and visual design. It has a bizarre art style that works really, really well for it, because it's not realistic, but it gives the impression of realism.
So I kind of want to contrast this then to Night in the Woods, because one of the things Night in the Woods did very well is ground things to something reasonable and then have things start to get weird once you understood what was happening.
Yeah. Kentucky Route Zero is a little bit more, we're setting up weird things that are, I don't want to say allegorical, like it's not quite an allegory, but it's more like, this is a weird thing there's weird stuff happening, like the conceit is really weird, but if you strip away the conceit, you can see the like underlying stuff beneath it. And that's kind of what the interludes do, is like the interludes generally aren't that weird. Like they're sort of aggressively normal in some cases. And that kind of connects to the weirdness that's going on in the chapters. It's sort of like it made me think of the bit about mascot characters in various media, and how like part of what a mascot character accomplishes is they can get away with saying and doing things that would be unacceptable for a person to do, but since it's like a talking dog or whatever, it's okay. And Night in the Woods kind of leans on that, where some of the stuff that people are saying wouldn't, like, if it were a realistically animated thing, it would be sort of horrifying, but since it's not, you can kind of mentally gloss over it. This is coming at it from the other angle, where because it's all normal looking people, the setting is weird, as a kind of like, my media terminology is failing me, literary terminology, but like basically a thing that lets you accept it a bit better, the sugarcoating, as it were.
Ah, yeah.
Because like Night in the Woods does its sugarcoating with like bright colors and like cheerful talking animal characters.
At first.
but like that's sort of how it does that. Kentucky Route Zero does that by making the setting really weird, and then slowly the other stuff surfaces.
I guess I have some opinions then about the general effectiveness of that, because the weirdness might be sugarcoating some stuff, but it's also really off-putting.
Yes, and Kentucky Route Zero is a really off-putting game in a number of ways.
Which, like, if you're trying to keep people around so that they can hear your message, is, I would say, a less effective means.
Yeah. I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if Night in the Woods was took some cues from Kentucky Route Zero and was like, I see what they're trying to do, but we can do it better or differently. And I think there's a bunch of people, if you go on the internet, there are a bunch of people who are upset about Act 5 and kind of the finale. And like, I think that's just a function of games with endings, like games that have installments and then end.
I mean, it's true for like novels as well. Like, there's always a certain fan base that hates the way a novel series wrapped up.
I mean, which example from last year would you like me to pick out?
I think
I've got also a million of them.
So this is part of the, like, we're writing this sequential thing and then ending it, rather than this is all self-contained and has an ending.
Yeah, because it gives you, with the time in between installments, you have time to imagine what it could be and then fall in love with the thing that you've imagined.
Yeah, because like, I know personally I have found myself way more guilty of that in situations where there are a number of years that pass between things, like books in a novel series, for example. Because like, I think I know where it's going, but then it ends up not going that way. It has been very rarely that I've been so upset that like I raged about it.
Does that mean you haven't played Kingdom Hearts 3?
I've not played any Kingdom Hearts games because it's nonsense.
That's the safest approach, yeah.
I have no idea who these pretty children are that all look the same.
Look, I like Kingdom Hearts, but it's still the safest approach.
So this is also kind of relevant because there are some examples of things that run really long and then end satisfactorily. This was actually the week of the last episode of The Good Place.
Please don't talk about it. I am not caught up.
Okay.
I mean, I am delighted to hear that it ended in a satisfying way because I adore The Good Place, but due to life circumstances have been unable to watch live television for quite some time.
That's fair. It ends very well, and in ways that still surprised me, and I, like, even through the last episode, I was like, that's an interesting philosophical take, and I'm glad I now have heard that.
It is by far the best sitcom about moral philosophy ever made.
Is there other sitcoms about moral philosophy?
I don't know.
I mean,
it doesn't matter, because this is definitely the best one.
Yo.
Do you feel that Good Omens is a sitcom or a drama? On some level, I feel it's a sitcom.
I mean, that's also fair. I have not seen Good Omens.
I having seen both, while I also enjoyed Good Omens, I adore The Good Place.
I love Good Omens dearly, but I've also, like, I'm very attached to the book.
But yeah, I feel like one of the things that the creator said was they had ideas for how to continue it, but they wanted to make sure that they didn't, like, ruin the ending by going too long.
Jeez.
Because there are financial pressures to, like, hey, this show is still popular, we could still keep doing it, but then at some point quality suffers.
Man, I feel like the Walking Dead showrunners should have listened to that message a long time ago.
This is why I want stories and stuff to end, because eventually they go on too long, and like having an ending that you know where you're going to makes everything more cohesive.
Okay, so I have a topic, and I know I've talked at this last week, but there is a game company called Spiders. They're a French development studio, and earlier we talked about with the server sometimes having ambition that outstrips your technical ability. And I feel like that is a thing that is happening with spiders, but like I'm also perfectly fine with that. After defeating Greedfall, I started working my way back, and I'm playing a game called Technomancer, which was the game that they released 2 years before Greedfall. And in a lot of ways, like it's interesting to see those two games up against each other, because they're definitely trying things. It's like they're trying to solve a puzzle that they haven't quite figured out how to. But they're also like real close to it. Like Greedfall was a prime example of them evolving that thing that they're trying to do. And with Technomancer, it's doing a lot of the same things. And honestly, I think its interface is better. So maybe they should have put that interface with Greedfall's story. But they're doing so many interesting things, and it has taken turns I absolutely was not expecting, and I am completely riveted to playing it, even though it kind of has a dumb name. Like, I am not a big fan
What's
of
wrong
the name
with Technomancers?
Like, it was a real big thing during the 90s cyberpunk boom.
I wasn't around for that.
So, I mean, basically, they're cybernetic Jedi kind of things.
Sure.
Not seeing a downside.
And it's got a lot of really cool elements to the game that basically this is from what I understand a direct sequel to Mars Warlogs, which was a game that they released like 6 years prior to that, I think. And Mars has been a colony so long that they don't know how to contact Earth anymore. They don't even know if Earth is still around. And Mars is ruled by a bunch of rival corporations who are essentially controlling monopolies of water. And the entire population lives deep underground. And the people that got caught in the sun mutated and are not dissimilar to ghouls in the Fallout series, but like the intelligent ghouls in the Fallout series. So like there's this whole thing going on with those folks where the mutants are basically treated like a sub-race. So like there's all the problems that you would expect to come along with that. There's the corporations themselves that like control rival warring towns. There's a very fascist militaristic state that you start off the game as being a Technomancer for, and that goes in directions, and it goes like in directions that you have control over. Like you can resist, and your resistances are noted. And like there's slums and because your character comes from the slums. And the weird thing that's going on that like I'm not sure if it works or if it doesn't is that everyone has a last name based on their job. So like you're a Technomancer, so everyone has the last name of Mancer that is a Technomancer. Or everybody may have like the last name of Seeker if they're, I don't remember what the Seekers were. Or, Labor if they're like grunts in the mine. So it's weird to get used to that. So it's like this bizarre devolved society thing going on. But like then a bunch of stuff happens and it gets real interesting. And I don't want to go into more details about the stuff that happens in case somebody wants to play it, but like that is a thing that Spiders seems to be good at doing, is setting up some event and actually kind of shocking you when it happens.
This actually sounds very similar to Deus Ex, the original.
It probably drew a lot of inspiration from it. But like you have lots of different factions. You've got like an underworld gangster faction called the Vori. There's and you gain reputation with all of them and can essentially carve your path out. But it's very Dune meets Blade Runner meets Mass Effect meets I don't even know. And I'm really impressed with how good of a game it is. And I'm also impressed with the fact that they seem to turn these out pretty quickly. And yes, they have problems, but like there's a core game there that if you can look past the problems is really enjoyable. And now I'm on this path of, so I've played, or I'm in the middle of the second one. I've played 2 of them now. I kind of want to keep going backwards and seeing what happens as I go backwards.
I think you might hit some gameplay experiments as you go backwards, because I think Bound by Flame was their attempt to copy Dark Souls.
Yeah. Bound by Flame is one that seems to have the most mixed impressions, and that's the next one back after this. I kind of want to play Mars Warlogs just because it's essentially in the same series as the one I'm playing right now. Probably what has caused this ambition outstripping technical prowess is, 1, the entire studio is 20 people. 2, they decided to make their own engine. And all these games are released on something called the Silk engine. And they probably would have had more support if they had gone with a standard engine and built around it, but they're doing something interesting, and they obviously have this vision of where they want to go. And like I said last week, I really think whatever they come up with next after Greedfall is probably going to be a true breakout hit, because they're so close. They've reached this point where they're on the cusp of it really being a truly great game. Greedfall is a really good game. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But again, it's pushing up against these boundaries of problem with the interface and some of the combat aspects. Probably the most interesting thing about Technomancer is you essentially have 4 fighting styles and can switch back and forth between them at will in the middle of combat. You have a mace and shield combat style. You have a dagger and gun combat style. You have a bow staff combat style. And then you have basically space magic. And if you specialize into space magic, it seems like you can pretty much just do nothing but space magic. I'm pretty much just using nothing but sword and shield.
I am so shocked.
I know, everyone is shocked. Although, the gun and dagger is rather fun too. Yeah, so it's funny because I remember going through this whole sequence with the Larian games of going through a bunch of the titles, even though they were vastly different. And I kind of feel like I'm probably stuck in a mode of me playing a bunch of Spiders games. But if you are capable of looking past flaws, they're probably well worth playing, because they're definitely. Here's the thing: is there's elements with all these games that are on par of the best of BioWare, but the total package isn't quite there.
I think that there are a bunch of. I think that BioWare has left a kind of void. And it's interesting seeing there's a bunch of different groups that are all trying to fill it.
Yeah. And to some extent, I feel like there's probably groups trying to fill the void left by Bethesda. Because, Fallout 4 was fun, but it wasn't nearly as well received as, Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. We'll see what the next Elder Scrolls game that isn't ESO will be like. But I definitely feel like Outer Worlds was trying to fill that niche of that isn't really there right now, and we're gonna get the same thing with BioWare. So, and I think we're also starting to see some companies trying to do the same thing as Telltale, even though Telltale's still somehow kicking around.
It isn't really. The name is
just like Atari, probably in a very similar way.
Atari is at least making money off of their name.
I mean, they're wanting to sell you a console that's more expensive than a PlayStation 4.
I mean, yes, they're also doing that.
Okay, I think the next thing on the list is an Ash topic. CrossCode.
CrossCode, a game I started playing again because I never actually beat it back in at the end of 2017 when it came out. This game is weird, and as I look at this game, it is definitely designed by people who either built or had experience with MMOs. A lot of experience with MMOs. It is at its core a action RPG in which you play a character who is playing in an MMO called Crossworlds. There is eventually a twist about halfway through in which you find out that some of the things you thought were true are not true, and some weird stuff is going on. But all of the start is things around like, hey, this is how parties form, and these are weird things. And why'd you pick that class? That class is considered to be not good because they're okay at everything, but they don't specialize in any one area, so most people don't play them. And you have friends who are playing other classes, and I don't know, this game is just delightful. Story-wise, and combat-wise, it's fairly unique. Definitely takes some getting used to. You have some melee attacks, you have some ranged attacks. Your melee attacks are vastly better than your ranged attacks, at least at first.
Yes, that was my thing. Like, you're a ballmancer, right?
Yes.
You really shouldn't use that ball much.
It has its uses. Also, it is the primary way in which you solve puzzles. But yeah, mostly you're going to be swinging at things with your melee, which is very good. And then eventually you get even better melee and better ranged when you unlock elements and things like that. I didn't realize quite what you could do with the combat system until I saw a speedrun recently, in which the runner took one of the early encounters, picked up like 2 pieces of gear running directly to this encounter, and just trashed it in otherwise starting gear, using very good movement and knowledge that you could guard some things that I didn't know about. But yeah, this game is really fun, and as I pick it up to play it again, I'm remembering what I liked about it so much.
I did like it. I kind of stalled out in the snow town.
Is this a game I should try?
Possibly.
I mean, are you okay with a action beat 'em up RPG?
That does have to be question 1. You have to be okay with that, and you have to be with SNES era RPG puzzles.
I have put in a lot of time into Yakuza.
I mean, this also kind of feels Secret of Mana-E.
Oh, yes.
It is very Secret of Mana-E, although it controls way better than that game, having played that recently.
There does appear to be a demo.
And if you beat the demo, you can buy it and carry over.
Oh, that is nice.
So yes, if you haven't played this game, try it. It is coming to Switch at some undetermined point in the future.
For some reason, I thought it had already come to Switch.
It was announced for Switch in a direct, like, middle of 2018.
Okay.
But it hasn't actually come out yet.
I think that was ultimately what I was waiting on.
Sounds like you might be waiting a while. But it's a charming game, you should play it. And because it has massive spoilers, it limits my ability to talk about it too much further until other people have actually played it.
I do feel like I got overwhelmed, is what I recall from this game. And this game has a thing going on where it feels like you can, like, play it in a whole bunch of different ways, and I don't know what's right.
I mean, I've seen a bunch of approaches.
Is there a right way necessarily?
I don't know. I have this opinion of games where it's like I want to try and optimize things. I don't know what routes I'm locking off if I'm not doing that.
I don't feel like that is strictly true.
Does this game have routes and different paths through the story?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I should pick this up and try it again. I do like the first mini-boss you find. Did you kill the Super Bun?
That's not the first mini-boss you can find.
Or the
You can also find
Slime?
Sonic.
Sonic? I don't think I found Sonic. I remember being like, hey, this is a raid encounter, and I was like, this probably is going to be rough without more people, isn't it? Yup.
The one I'm thinking of is the Elite Quest that it tells you it should be difficult for you at level 15, but is given to you immediately.
No, I'm thinking about the bun the bun mother layer that you can find off in a corner of the starter zone. There's actually two boss areas you can find in the starter zone.
Yeah, the Hedgehog layer is the one that has Sonic in it.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. That's the second boss I killed.
No, I feel like I don't remember where the first one is.
Well, the map is not linear.
Not even close.
Like most MMO maps. I believe if you go up and to the right, like you curve around upwards and then head far right, there is a little corner that has a cave with a, like, you know the little bunny monsters that hop around? There's a boss.
You normally don't see those until you get to the snow area.
Maybe I'm thinking of that?
Do they have a version of Rabites or Rabites or however you pronounce them?
Their version of Rabites is basically hedgehags. They are little blue hedgehog monsters.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, and that is a quest objective. That was also part of their Switch announcement. They said it wouldn't come to Switch until hedgehags fly. So their Switch trailer has hedgehags and helicopters. Don't know. Sounds like the Switch release is going to take a while, so I'm just going to take the time to recommend this game again.
Okay.
It's a good game. I remember enjoying it and kind of petering out. I feel like this game has a bunch of puzzles and sometimes I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to solve the puzzles at the moment I encounter them, or if I'm supposed to be backtracking to solve those puzzles. But that's, I think, what I remember was like trying to figure out a bunch of puzzles and having anxiety about it. But I should give it another go. It was fun while I was playing it.
So, since we have a little bit of time, I have like a topic that has been poking around in my head. So, just the other day, I found out that my little small suburban town was getting a game store. And what I mean by that is like a, pen and paper tabletop game store, Magic the Gathering game store, etc., etc., etc. And it opened today, so I went to the grand opening, and I was the only person in the store. And as I look around the store, I'm seeing like lots of money tied up in merchandise on the shelves. And it made me realize how terrifying it must be to open like a game store. Because like it opened and is fairly well stocked and has like a very wide assortment with multiple copies of lots and lots of board games. It has what appears to be the starter display set of X-Wing stuff. It's got like a ton of Dragon Shield merchandise, boxes of all the standard Magic, Force of Will, maybe some Yu-Gi-Oh, I think. Like, it was a sizable outlay of product, and like that has to be terrifying going into that, not knowing if it's going to succeed, and I hope they succeed. And I mostly went by to largely make a purchase, but yeah, like that's I hope it goes really well. They have seemingly a good setup with like lots of gaming space, but the concept of opening a game store right now seems terrifying to me.
Yeah,
I will say the biggest game store around here, which is Mox Boarding House, is funded by Card Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they really need to have the storefront, but they do, and it's nice. They are running the biggest online Magic seller, I think. If not, they're close.
Yeah, I mean, so Mox Boarding House is a thing that they wanted to do probably, and not the real business.
Well, I think they had... So, my understanding is they had the funds to do Mox Boarding House, and it actually doubles as the warehouse for their Magic cards. Like, the upper floor is their Magic reserves.
Yeah, the story that I've heard a number of times is that they basically made a ton of money with Card Kingdom and needed to move to a bigger space, but also just had a bunch of money. So they're like, well, we'll open a game store. We've always wanted to open like a game store that we like. And that game store has been sort of bankrolled by Card Kingdom until it found its legs and got off the ground. And then it turns out it's actually really successful because if you have a well-kept game store and have an attached cafe, it tends to go well.
But that's a huge outlay of initial money that they just had.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge outlay of initial money, and it's founded by two people who fundamentally know how to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we have the equivalent of that here in town in Covenant Games, who, after running their own very successful mail order business, decided to create a showplace store similar to Mox Boarding House. But like, they only do the games that they support. Like, they don't do a lot of games, and that's also like on the other side of town. But like, it was about a year ago that we got a little fledgling comic shop, and I had the same thoughts when it opened. And like, I think maybe opening a comic shop, at least on some level, is usually dissolving someone's back collection and turning it into a store. And Diamond is way more open about having random shops like selling product than probably a lot of the game distributors are, and they seem to be doing fine. But yeah, like, it's the whole Mox concept of it largely just being a thing somebody wants to do. Like, I don't know how you become a successful game shop now in the era of the internet. Like, it was a thing that I saw over and over in the pre-internet era, because like, it was just the place where you had to go to get stuff. But now, Like, there's lots of places to get stuff.
The key seems to be social spaces. Like,
Yeah.
there has to be reason to go to the game store.
Which also means there needs to be a community to go to that game store.
Right.
It also means that you need to either have to figure out some way to compete with online sales for what you're selling, or have a different revenue stream where the actual product that you sell is kind of secondary. If you have a community hungry for it, one of the things that I've seen that's surprisingly effective are like game private clubs where like you pay membership dues, and that's what keeps them afloat. And they'll order product for you. They don't like store very much product, but they'll store product for you. They'll order it if you want it. If you like want the newest thing, they'll have it ready for you at usually a pretty deep discount, because what they're making money on is your membership and like food and drinks that they sell.
The one thing that they're doing that is probably a good idea is that basically you can come in and play like a bunch of different board games that they have in their library of games, and I hope that just gets people in and maybe get some product turning off the shelves.
I mean, that's very much a Mox thing they do, where it's like, hey, come in, eat dinner, and here's our big catalog of board games you can check out.
Also, the restaurant in one of them is way, way nicer than it has any right to be.
It's true.
The one where somebody sold their soul to learn how to cook chicken perfectly every single time.
Yes, that one.
I am hoping that at some point they start hosting like draft events, because I would love to have a local place within walking distance to do draft, but
I mean, I would expect them to probably do pre-releases before that.
well, but to do pre-releases you have to be a WPN store, I think.
Oh, are they not?
That's probably
WPN
going to be their step one. So
Like WPN is like a not trivial process.
the store that opened up near me while I was in Cleveland opened up with WPN. So if they don't have it now, they're probably going to get it soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they do, but like also WPN comes with like product minimums that you have to buy every month and things like that.
It does.
So I don't know, like they'll probably have to get off their feet, or on their feet, whatever.
I was going to say, I'm also hopeful that they've, done the research and figured out what the expected spend in your region is.
I don't know. Like I mostly just bought some packs today. They were running a opening special of like 3 packs for effectively $10, and that's fine. So I bought some Theros, and I bought some Eldraine, and a couple packs of Modern Horizons.
One of the things that I've seen, at least heard mentioned, I don't know, I haven't actually been to one, although I've seen them, are places that are like, this is a game store, and also you can come here to watch the game, whatever the game might be. So they have like a space that's people watching whatever sports are on, whatever sports they're interested in, and then like a different space that's board games, and depending on what's going on, the clientele sort of shifts.
Well, like growing up, all of the quote-unquote game stores I went to were also comic shops, and there was like some diversification there.
Yeah.
So,
I did notice they had nothing Warhammer.
Warhammer's super expensive.
Yeah.
But it still costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Takes up a lot of shelf space.
Yep.
So, when I was in Georgia, I know that Warhammer was a pretty contentious topic for the game store owner I had, because it was very, very expensive and took up a lot of shelf space and was the prime target of theft. So that became a little bit of a sore subject for him. I don't know if that's still a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, most of the boxes are on the big side, but I guess there are still single-carded miniatures, which I would imagine are probably what got stolen.
I think it was actually some of the more, like, the small boxes would just get walked off with. Maybe that's why everything's getting pushed towards start collecting.
That would help that problem. Those boxes are a lot harder to walk out with. A lot of the individual truth boxes have gone to online only anyway.
So, was there anyone else in the store with you?
Like, just the 2 proprietors and me. And they said that there had been one other person in. Yikes. So, yeah, no, like, I mean...
Good luck to them, though.
Yeah. Like, it just dawned on me, like, not that I hadn't had this thought in my head before, but, like, it would be really hard to start a store, and especially like there were clear things missing from their inventory, and it's obvious why. Like, it's really expensive to like buy into miniature gaming, for example, as product. But it's
also very expensive. It's also hard to buy into the like necessary equipment to host miniature gaming.
Right.
Like Magic card games, board games, you mostly just need a table. Miniature games tend to need more specialized tables, and also preferably you have a stock of terrain.
Right.
That people can use to set up play space.
In sci-fi and historic and fantasy and...
Yeah, one of the reasons that Games Workshop, like when Games Workshop has been big into supporting local stores, one of the big things that drives that is that store kits come with a full table of terrain for demos.
But it also just seems like if you were to really do it and cover all your bases, you would have to be carrying so many different kinds of products that you would go mad in trying to meet all the requirements. Or you just specialize and potentially miss some gamers.
I feel like board games is a pretty tough start, especially if you're stocking like more than one board game of any given type.
Yeah, like they had pretty much all the Vlaada games.
Those are especially a tough start.
They had like the traditionals like Carcassonne and Catan.
Wait, do you mean when you say Vlaada, do you mean code names or do you mean like Through the Ages?
Through the Ages, Galaxy Trucker, whatever that arena combat game is that I can't think of the name of right now. Yeah.
You shouldn't build a store that's just catering to me. Like, that's not... it's not a good business model, I don't think.
They probably had, I don't know, maybe 100 different board game titles on opening day.
Wow.
And, like, multiple copies of a lot of them. And then, like, on, Carcassonne, it's, like, all the expansions and multiple copies of those. So, like, yeah, that's really what struck me as I'm roaming around. Like, there's a lot of money tied up in stock right now. And I'm not sure how you make that profitable. Along with, like, all the other incidentals of, like, the wall brackets that have the ability to, like, put, pegs and stuff on them securely, and, like, the free-floating carts that also have storage, and the security system that I could see had just been unboxed behind them. So, yeah, like, I wish them the best of luck, but, like, I could not figure out the calculations myself. Now, the positive is their location is right next to the high school. It's right next to the movie theater. It's next to a fairly popular donut shop, so it's going to get, like, some organic traffic.
Oh, wow. So, I knew a game store that was not good when I was living in Texas. And it survived. I don't know if it still survives, because I haven't checked, but it was going for the entire time I was there quite healthily because it was within walking distance of a high school.
So maybe that's enough to make up for a lot?
Location can make up for a lot of things, yes. You still need to have basic business sense, but...
I would have rather they went with the Ultra Pro line rather than the Dragon Shield line, but, whatever.
They both have use cases.
I'm kind of partial to the Eclipse mats.
I mean, yes, those are just better than everything else.
But I will say Dragon Shield looks way flashier.
On the shelf, yes.
Yeah.
That might be why they went with them.
Yeah, they also had like this kiosk full of 5th edition stuff, and it was like all of the official TSR books. Not TSR, sorry, Wizards of the Coast.
You're dating yourself, though.
I know I'm dating myself. And again, like, none of this stuff is cheap. Especially when the comic shop is starting to branch out into some gaming stuff as well. Mostly along the lines of just like carrying cool dice sets and things like that. But in the midst of pondering, we have more or less filled out the time. Any final thoughts? Any final quickie topics?
Don't think so.
Okay. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.